Hello everyone, my name is Kiona Sadowski, and I will be telling you a story that I had received from my step-grandfather, my stepmother's father, and it is about a historical building that is based in Honolulu, Hawaii, and it was added to the Nation Register of Historical Places in 1973, and then was later declared a National Historic Landmark in 2007. And so this building came into place. The Washington Place was then created by this man that you'll now going to start talking about. So, in 1825, there was a young man in his 20s named Isaac Hart who signed on to be a hand of a whaling ship that was cut out of New Bedford, Massachusetts. So, during this time, whaling voyages were expected to be about 2 to 3 years and were very notorious for being difficult on seamen. And so in 1826, about a year later after Isaac signed on, the ship was made port in Honolulu, Hawaii, and Isaac then decided that he evidently he had enough of the sea life. He's listed on the ship's log, however, as the deserted Sandwich Island of 1826. In the years that followed, Isaac established himself as a home builder and a master carpenter, and he built some larger and more luxurious homes when a thatched roof was the norm in Honolulu. In the early 1840s, a sea captain named John Dominus wanted to build a mansion. At the same time, King Kamehameha III, ruler of the Hawaiian Kingdom, was having a new home built a few blocks away by the same builder and architect Isaac Hart from before. Isaac then took on both of these projects and did end up finishing them. The king's home became known as the first Iolani Place, when the Hawaiian Kingdom decided to move its seat of government from Lahaina, Maui to Honolulu. The home was later razed due to termite damage, and a stone palace, which still stands today, was erected in its place. In 1846, as his home was near completion, John Dominus set sail on a trade mission to China to gather new furnishings for his home, among other things. Unfortunately, the ship was lost at sea and was never able to live in his grand home. His widow, Mary Dominus, rented out the rooms of this home to select boarders. One such boarder was a Jewish commissioner to Hawaii, appointed by President Polk. He was so impressed by the stately elegance of this home that he sought to christen it Washington Place in honor of George Washington's birthday, our first president. And King Kamehameha agreed, and by royal decree, and commanded the name to be retained in all time coming in 1848. John Owen Dominus, the son of John and Mary Dominus from before, the person who's renting out this home, married the future Queen of Hawaii, Liliuokalani, in 1862. And he moved into Washington Place and moved in with Mary, who died in 1889. The Queen lived in the home for 55 years until her death in 1917. When the Hawaiian Kingdom was overthrown in 1893, the Queen continued to live in Washington Place, but was considered to be under house arrest for quite some time, as many of us know. The house was then dedicated to the territory of Hawaii, which later became, and now is, the state of Hawaii, and became the official residence of the governor. Beginning in 1918 to 2002, it served as the executive mansion for 12 governors at the time. And the new governor's home was built on the grounds of Washington Place and continues to be maintained with state functions and guided tours. Now for the family connection, which many of you have been probably waiting for. In 1842, Isaac Hart married a Hawaiian girl named Kahena Nui, and they named their son Isaac H. Kapuanai Hart, who married a half Hawaiian girl named Elizabeth Kanu Kanoelani wand in 1863. They had 8 children, the youngest of which was Otelia Hart, who married Oliver Henry Robinson in 1900. They had 10 children. One of these was John Robinson, who married Helen Fernandez in 1940. They had 3 sons. My stepmother's father was one of these boys. His name is Kenneth, and he ended up marrying my grandmother, Joanne Hart, and had 4 children, my stepmother being the youngest. So, evidently, this makes Isaac Hart, the 20-year-old who sailed from Massachusetts to Honolulu on a whaling ship in the mid-1820s and created this mansion that has stood for about 180 years, has such a rich history in Hawaii. My stepmother's 3 times great-grandfather. And that is the end of our wonderful historic story that I was very wonderful to learn about. I do apologize if I did mess up on a few of the names. I tried my best to remember of them and remember how to pronounce them. But again, I do apologize if I didn't do it correctly. I do encourage everyone, along with my grandfather, he also encourages people to look up this history because it is very wonderful and quite interesting. Thank you so much for listening.